Chapter 1 9 Serenity's Secret Records. Chapter 1 9 Serenity's Secret Records. On the highest platform on Devil Peak stood a black-garbed man with rapt attention high above the clouds. The sun and moon hung side by side, flooding the land below in their warm glow and sharp coldness. The man took deep breaths as he spread his arms toward the sky, and the lights gathered in his palms. And the world dimmed, a foul wind stirred, wreathing with endless howls of agony from untold ghosts. The wind picked up the man's elegant hair, revealing a demonic face behind the sun, and the moon dimmed while the man grew in power from the rays. Soon, even dark energy began to rise from him. With his face battered by the freezing winds, the dark energy grew thicker until it covered him whole. He released a breath and an evil smile adorned his face. Rumble. With a loud sound as the trigger, the 4 mountains in vicinity erupted while Devil Peak itself was racked by terrible tremors. The man, absorbing the essences of the sun and moon, opened his eyes with a space-rending sound. 7 flashes of light appeared. As the light scattered, there stood 7 figures radiating ruthless power. His eyebrows shook but a fraction as the man spoke in an eerie voice. "How are the 7 of you here? Didn't you all despise us demonic cultivators to no end? Humph, demonic emperor, Zhui Yifan. Isn't it obvious why we're here?" An old man stroked his white beard as he gave a look of disdain. His heart skipped a beat and Zhui Yifan sounded out, "Giza Sword Emperor, I do not know what you mean. Humph, stop faking it and take out the 9 Serenity's secret records." A female Daoist stepped arrogantly as she threw her chin forward. Zhui Yifan paled. It had been only a month since he found the legendary 9 Serenity's Emperor's dwelling. After brushing death countless times in the process, he finally obtained the written accounts he wished to study for all his life. How was it that they caught wind of this? He suddenly recalled something and his face grew darker by the second. "Zhao Chen, come out," shouted Zhui Yifan. A cheery voice rang through the empty forest on the mountain. Immediately, a handsome youngster in white robes walked from behind the 7, smiling. All the while as he made a curt bow to Zhui Yifan. "Ha ha ha, master, did you ask for me?" Zhui Yifan glared with hatred at the hypocrite and said, "Is this your doing?" "Yes," nodded Zhao Chen with a smile. "Did you also cancel the guarding array?" "Yes." "Why? I never slight you in the least." Zhui Yifan clenched his fist as murderous intent flared out from his eyes. Despite being a demonic cultivator, he normally did not kill without reason. If he did, he was just acting out on his nature. Else, those righteous cultivators would have come to end him much sooner. Zhao Chen, for that matter, was an orphan that Zhui Yifan took in when he saw his talent. Yet, who'd have thought the day would come when Zhao Chen would betray him despite putting a front with his calm demeanor. Before Zhui Yifan's increasing killing intent, Zhao Chen's feet betrayed him as he took 2 steps back, moving closer to the 7 beings behind him. "Master, I understand your kindness is as heavy as a mountain. But that doesn't give you the right to steal the 8 Emperor seat and cast me in your shadow for all eternity. Even more so, regarding the 9 Serenity's secret records. Ever since you've obtained it, you've trained alone, even afraid of me catching a glimpse of it." Zhui Yifan's heart clenched when he heard this. Zhao Chen would never know he did it for his sake. Having low cultivation and going head first into studying the 9 Serenity's secret records would deviate one's cultivation. He had opted to understand it in its entirety and only then impart it to him, yet all his plans were ruined in just a short month. "Ha ha ha, well said. Zhao Chen, you're a true disciple." Zhui Yifan's roaring laughter reached the heavens and so did his rage. "Since it is so, Master will give you a taste of the 9 Serenity's secret records." "Zhui Yifan, it is not your place for such unbridled words in the presence of us 7. The white-bearded old man stepped before Zhao Chen. "Humph, everyone in the sacred domain knows me as the 8 Emperor. I could care less if all 7 of you emperors come at me together." No sooner said than done. Zhui Yifan launched a palm at Zhao Chen. A black claw flashed in the sky, reaching out for him. His eyes shrunk, face paled, and retreated with haste. Fear having taken its grip on the youth. In the face of that powerful claw, the old man drew a sword. A sword wave flashed and the black claw was turned to nothing. "Humph, 9 Serenity's secret records is nothing great." The old man stood in the wind with his sword ready, disdain all over his face. Zhui Yifan smiled and waved his palms. "Giza, stop being so arrogant." Boom. As if endless thunders were rumbling, the sky was covered by thousands of black palms, bearing down on the 7. Each palm was twice as big as the claw. Such power reached a new height that even the seven were in shock. How can this be? Did he break through to the sacred stage? Sword Emperor sucked in a cold breath at the sight as they watched. They could feel bravery leaving them. Not even seven emperors together were a match against a sacred stage expert. Zhao Chen's face grew paler as regret gnawing his heart. Who'd have thought just a month of practice would elevate Zhuo Yifan to such height in power? Humph, damn traitor, this is the end for you. Sneered Zhuo Yifan. Whoosh! A light fell from the heavens above, piercing the black hands and went straight for Zhuo Yifan. With no time to react, the light passed right through him. Scarlet blood spurted from his mouth and the thousands of black hands vanished. Zhuo Yifan looked with his wen face at the sky to see a middle-aged man basked in a holy aura of light. Saint Zhuo Yifan bit his lips in defiance. He knew in his heart the newcomer's intention. Demonic Emperor Zhuo Yifan, this saint represents the sacred domain in retrieving the demon emperor's legacy. If you hand it over, your life shall be spared. The surroundings and people entered his eyes, yet none of them were reflected within. He wouldn't even deign to look at Zhuo Yifan. If not for having the 9 Serenities secret records, this was the strongest saint in the sacred domain. Even emperor stage experts were mere ants before him. With a miserable chuckle, Zhuo Yifan took out a dazzling multicolored jade slip from his bosom. The mere sight of it changed the expressions of everyone present, especially saints. With a look of derision to all around him, Zhuo Yifan jeered. What righteous cultivators, what saint? Aren't you all just thieves lusting a poor man's wealth? I won't let any of you get one word from the 9 Serenities secret records, even if I have to destroy it. As if to prove his conviction, a powerful energy rose up from his body. Damn, his gunner self-destruct. Sword Emperor's eyes shrank, speeding further away, with the other not far behind. Only the saint exploded in holy wrath and charged for Zhuo Yifan. Stop. With a proud smile, Zhuo Yifan pinched and the jade slip was turned to dust right under the saint's eyes. The rage and bitterness he saw in the saint as he gnashed his teeth elicited an unrestrained laughter from Zhuo Yifan. Boom. His laughter was soon accompanied by powerful shockwaves leveling the entire Devil Peak. As the smoke and dust cleared, it was soon clear to see the angry face of the saint, along with his worse-for-wear clothes. Even in the face of such a terrifying explosion, a saint can come out of it without so much as a scratch. The Sword Emperor came before the saint to express his admiration. The saint snorted and was about to leave. It was then Zhao Chen blocked him. Please wait, saint. Demonic Emperor Zhuo is cunning and deceitful. If he possesses someone, just from knowing the 9 Serenities secret records, he will one day come to exact vengeance upon us all. Humph, his self-destruction was down to his soul. What possession? He waved his sleeve and vanished. The hearts of everyone present eased after hearing this. With a saint present, an emperor stage expert would find it impossible to escape with their soul even if they self-destructed. It was a pity for the loss of the ancient demon emperor's legacy, 9 Serenities secret records. As people gazed upon the ruins of Devil Peak, they each felt differently. Some were rejoicing, others lamenting, while most were feeling pity. Yo, we are picking up this novel since there are some people asking for this. I'm also personally interested in this story. Chapter 2: Demonic Emperor's Rebirth. Chapter 2: Demonic Emperor's Rebirth. In the dead of night, even the moon's radiance was snuffed out by the black clouds. Bodies laid in a pile in a quiet part of the forest, the aftermath of a gruesome battle. The air reeked of blood, drawing all kinds of wild animals to feast on their flesh. Among the countless chomping sounds of animals, from amongst the bodies, a young man let out a groan. Ears twitched and the animals approached the source in silence. Thump. With a loud sound, 2 corpses were thrown to the side to reveal a blood-stained figure wrestling out from the pile. The animals jumped 2 steps back in fright, but when they noticed he was alive, they came back with a vengeance to rob life from him. Yet, the youth hardly noticed the imminent danger, still sat there in a daze. Is this the current me? He checked his hands as his eyes glazed over. A wolf's howl echoed as the beast sprung towards the youth. He turned his head, his eyes shining with bloodthirst from his blood-stained face. The killing intent was akin to 2 swords stabbing into the wolf's eyes. Whoosh. The wolf grounded to a halt, shivering as it curled backwards. The rest of the animals were also making a run for it when they watched those demonic pair of eyes. Despite his weak appearance, the animal's instinct screamed at them of the danger the youth posed. As silence set in once again, the youth took a deep breath and closed his eyes. His name was Zhuo Fan, 15 years of age. a servant of the Luo clan at Cloud Manor. His life was happy and carefree, until 3 days ago when a band of Blackwind Mountain bandits butchered the manor. He along with some guards escorted the young master and young miss as they fled, only to find his end in this forest at the hand of their pursuers. In his final breaths, he was filled with an obsession. It was this that drew the drifting demonic emperor Zhuo Yifan's resentment and allowed the demonic emperor to possess him. Zhuo Fan's eyes flashed with demonic glee. Ha ha ha, Sword Emperor, Zhao Chen, you would have never imagined the 9 Serenities secret records has a way of possessing someone without the need of a soul. Wait for me, I will soon return to sacred domain and behead you myself. Only Zhuo Fan's mad laughter echoed in the bleak forest. Even the other animals chewing on corpses were startled into fleeing cough. A sudden cough cut his raving laughter short as his eyes turned like a hawk towards the source. He helped me. Zhuo Fan rushed to it to see a Luo clan's guard buried in bodies, with blood pouring from his mouth. Humph, the affairs of mortals have nothing to do with me. His eyes shrank and shook his head as he was about to leave. The previous Zhuo Fan would have done his best in helping the man. But he was now replaced by the demonic emperor Zhuo Yifan. To Yifan, the Luo clan were nothing but ants to him who was so bored as to save an ant's life. He took only 2 steps before stopping. Recalling something, he dropped down cross-legged to inspect his body. Not a moment passed and Zhuo Fan flashed his eyes open with glee. This kid is 15 yet has never cultivated. His body is untainted. On the martial emperor continent, most could cultivate. Even farmers would have a first or second layer in the foundation establishment stage. It was rarer to find a 15 years old who never cultivated once, and the strongest cultivation method is the 9 Serenities secret records, demon transformation art, who could use others' cultivation and later allow one to swallow the heavens and devour the earth, reaching the highest realm of power in this world, needed a pure body to train in it. This cultivation method was something the 9 Serenities Emperor comprehended only after he entered the Emperor stage. Just when he was contemplating destroying his cultivation and starting anew, he suffered at the hands of the other Emperor stage experts. In ancient times, the 9 Serenities Emperor was among the top 3 strongest emperors. For it to make even him consider restarting his cultivation, this cultivation method must be of tremendous might. Maybe it surpassed even a heaven-ranked cultivation method. As such, once Zhuo Yifan obtained it, he began to consider his next course of action. But before he could decide, the 7 emperors and Zhao Chen came and forced him on this path. With a pure body, the effect would be even more pronounced. At this point, Zhuo Fan returned to the guard. He removed the corpses covering him and pulled him out of the rest. Empty eyes watched as he got pulled from the brink of death. The guard smiled. Ah, it's you, Zhuo Fan. Thank you, I'll repay you when we get back. Hey, why wait when you can just as well do it now? With a corner of his mouth perked up, Zhuo Fan exposed an odd smile. The guard froze as a chill seized his heart as they were both from the Luo clan. This wasn't the first time he saw Zhuo Fan. But this was his first time watching such a sinister expression. It was akin to how a wolf would set its sights on a rabbit. Zhuo Fan. What are you going to do? The guard watched him vigilant. Zhuo Fan ignored him as he watched with the same smile, mumbling all the while, not bad, a second layer of qi condensation cultivation. Solid foundation material. While other cultivation methods absorbed the spiritual energy around them to refine the host's body, the demon transformation art robbed others of their cultivation to further his own. But how could a normal man steal from a cultivator? When the target was wounded, of course, to the point he couldn't even move. This was the reason for Zhuo Yifan's uncertainty to abolish his cultivation at the time. If such an encounter never happened, he would have been immortal for the rest of his life. It would end in a complete loss, something he believed caused even the 9 Serenities Emperor to hesitate at that time. Yet, here he was, with a newly possessed body that the heavens dropped on his lap. Truly something only found by luck. Seeing the insidious Zhuo Fan watching him like a rogue watched a beauty, the guard's heart never knew rest as he shouted, "Why not Zhuo Fan? Hey, correct." The evil laughter further emphasized Zhuo Fan's malevolent look. I am the sacred domain's 8th emperor, demonic emperor Zhuo Yifan. Chapter 3, Demon Transformation Art. Chapter 3, Demon Transformation Art. The guard watched in horror as Zhuo Fan raised a palm over his head and began operating his cultivation method. Black streams came from it, twisting like worms as they burrowed into the guard's body. The moment they entered, the guard's face changed. His horrified visage, twisted from pain, now darkened the pale face from the extreme blood loss. With each passing moment, the man inched closer to turning as black as charcoal. In the dark night, even if one didn't pay attention, no one would claim him to be a human. This perked Shuo Fan up, riveted in excitement to the sight before him. Demon transformation art might take others' cultivation as his own, but when was it that easy to steal one's yuan qi? Even if he did, it would probably reject him. He needed to show extreme caution, especially now when he was building his foundation. Therefore, Shuo Fan chose to first demonify it before absorbing it. Taking a deep breath to calm his excitement, his hand tightened and the black streams began to flow back from the guard into his body as the guard himself was withering in front of his naked eye. An hour later, Shuo Fan took back his hand and sat cross-legged, beginning to refine the new yuan qi. The guard collapsed and scattered to ashes. It was as if an ancient corpse was unearthed only to scatter in the wind the moment they made contact. 9 Serenity's Emperor's creation not only took others' cultivation but also their essence. The black energy roamed around his body like a flood. Shuo Fan sank into concentration as he operated the cultivation method to make the energy flow through his meridians, and widening little by little the entire power of a qi condensation expert flowed through his untrained body. The force was on the verge of bursting his meridians as his forehead broke out in sweat, but he pushed through because he knew this power could build a never-before-seen foundation. Such a stable foundation would guarantee an easier and smoother path of cultivation. Time passed 1 second at a time for 2 hours. Long hours, as Shuo Fan gnashed his teeth and sweat poured from him like a river. He loosened his jaw only on the 6th hour, when the black energy, after roaming his body for hundreds of times, gathered in his dantian and settled in the form of a black lake. He slowly opened his eyes and released a long breath. The clouds in the horizon began to brighten, and the stuffed wild animals returned to the depths of the forest. It's dawn? Ha ha ha, I didn't expect for a second layer qi condensation's cultivation would require an entire night. Shuo Fan shook his head and examined his body. Bang! A loud sound echoed and the rock crumbled under the Shuo Fan's frail punch. Shuo Fan nodded in satisfaction. The qi condensation expert's cultivation refined his body and improved it greatly. Based on his body strength alone, he was no weaker than a qi condensation expert. Next, he inspected his cultivation. He was calm before, but that look scared the living daylight out of him. As for his cultivation, not only did it reach the 5th layer of foundation establishment, the yuan qi inside him was that of qi condensation, and not of foundation establishment. Man, this demon transformation art is fantastic. Shuo Fan couldn't help smacking his lips, being secretly delighted. Generally speaking, even those rare geniuses from the sacred domain needed a year to reach the 5th layer of foundation establishment. Yet, he needed 1 night to do what others had to work for 2-3 years to attain. It won't be long before I return to the sacred domain. Hehehe, Shuo Fan snickered just as he was indulging in his fantasy. When he returned, shouts woke him up. Frowning, he walked cautiously in their direction. He was clear on his limitations. Even if he had a 5th layer foundation establishment cultivation, this little achievement couldn't deal with the simplest martial skill. He had no power to retaliate if he met an expert. As such, being prudent took first priority. After all, he wasn't the all-powerful demonic emperor right now. With steps as light as a cat, he neared a bush. Shuo Fan pushed aside the leaves to see 2 parties in a stalemate. One had more than a dozen men, Luo clan's guards surrounding an 18-year-old girl and a 6-year-old boy. The other group wore black and was led by an old man, over 20 people. The man was familiar to Shuo Fan. He recalled seeing him in the Luo clan as their steward. Then the pair surrounded by the guards had to be Luo clan's young master, Luo Yunhai, and young miss, Luo Yunchang Humph. No wonder the mountain bandits breached the tight security of the Luo clan guards. We had a traitor amongst us. Shuo Fan sneered inside. He recalled his disciple and clenched his fists. In his past life, he was betrayed by his disciples, and the one he possessed now died from a similar result. He couldn't help relating a bit to the body he occupied, but he soon shook his head and sighed, ready to turn around and leave. With his strength, he had no way of helping them. Besides, there was nothing tying him to the Luo clan. It just wasn't worth throwing his life away for yet. He only took 2 steps before his heart seized with pain. The 3rd step never came. Chapter 4, Heart Demon. Chapter 4, Heart Demon. In fear, Shuo Fan tightened a hand over his chest. The pain was so excruciating, It brought him to his knees, mumbling, "What's going on? Did my cultivation deviate?" His heart welled with panic. If he deviated right as he built his foundation, the result wasn't as simple as losing all progress. He would never again be capable of cultivation, he would become a cripple, but the pain left as soon as it came. Fan stood up and took a deep breath. He couldn't make heads or tails of it, yet the next step brought with it the same heartache. No, this isn't deviation but heart demon. Thinking of this, he began to look for the source of the heart demon. If a cultivator ignored it, he wasn't far from deviating and becoming a demon. Fan soon found its source, but the result left him feeling discontent before being possessed. Fan was a devoted servant. Luo clan's young miss was very kind to him, and so he pledged lifelong devotion to the clan. The resentment before death was born out of regret of not protecting the Luo clan. It was then the demonic emperor's hatred and his resentment fused, possessing his soul and breathing life into his body. And his resentment became a contract with the demonic emperor, turning into his shackles. In short, the demonic emperor lived so he could replace him in protecting the Luo clan, or the heart demon would haunt him. Blaster. This punk is the worst. He wants me to be a servant. Fan wanted to cry, but no tears came out as he kept cursing. How could the glorious and magnificent demonic emperor Zhuo Yifan, the 8th emperor of the sacred domain, be tied down by some nameless clan? Yet the heart demon couldn't be ignored either. Helpless, he caressed his forehead. It would be better if a punk like you wished for vengeance instead. This way, it would have taken me a few years to kill him. Yet, you went and ruined my life. Who's there? Show yourself. An aged voice shouted, and Fan sensed a thick killing intent aimed at his location. Shaking his head, he sighed and walked out. Since he got found out, he might as well go deal with that traitorous steward's son. Seeing who it was, steward's son smiled with derision. Humph, I wondered who it could be, when in fact it was just a little bastard. Then steward's son turned to Luo Yunchang, paying him no heed. Young miss, I advise you to hand over the returning dragon palm martial art to avoid any unnecessary casualties. I don't think you want that either. Rubbish, Giza son, you traitor. As long as we're here, you won't harm a single hair on young miss and young master. The Luo clan's guard captain took a step forward. Luo Yunchang glared back, her pretty face filled with resolve. Steward's son, returning dragon palm is a spirit-ranked martial art handed down in the Luo clan for generations. We will never hand it over. Fan snorted inside. He was wondering why the mountain bandits raided the Luo clan. It was all for a mere spirit-ranked martial art on the martial emperor continent. All cultivation methods and martial arts were divided into 5 ranks: spirit, profound, earth and heaven. Each in turn was split in low, mid and high. In sacred domain, spirit-ranked martial arts were at every corner and mere trash in the eyes of a demonic emperor such as himself. He had thousands of them already. It was a total waste to die for such junk. Fan sighed and shouted, bored, young miss, it's just a spirit-ranked martial art. Just give it to him and I'll just give you another. All eyes quivered in shock, then looked at him like a nutcase. Fan, quite the cheeky tone you have there. Taking out a random spirit-ranked martial art? On what grounds can a 15-year-old Luo clan servant do that? Ha ha ha. Steward's son threw his head back and laughed, eyes filled with mockery. Even the bandits followed with their taunting laughter, not hiding their ridicule. While the guards looked at him in doubt. Even his former friends familiar with him looked oddly. This kid is usually honest. Why does he speak nonsense all of a sudden? Did the mountain bandits scared him silly? That must be it. With that, all guards changed their looks into those of sympathy. Fan saw through them and just shrugged. His repertoire wasn't limited to spirit-ranked martial art, and even included Demon Emperor's ancient art, the 9 Serenities secret records. But they'd never believe him. Fan, enough nonsense. Hurry up and look after the young master. Fan turned at the scolding voice to find Luo Yunchang in a mask of rage. But her eyes conveyed a trace of pity. Chapter 5 Obnoxious Servant. Chapter 5 Obnoxious Servant. Perking up into a grin, Fan picked up on her. Intent young miss had to be thinking he was insane, yet she still did not want him to die. As they were speaking, she was looking for a chance to hide him behind the guards. What are you waiting for? Get him over here before he humiliates us further. Luo Yunchang shouted at the guards before anyone even moved. A bloody blade rested on Zhuo Fan's neck weight. Steward's son snickered, his eyes piercing through Luo Yunchang's as he had figured out her plan. He, young miss is as kind as ever, wanting to save even a mentally unstable servant. Luo Yunchang raged, Steward's son, you won't let even the demented live? Ha ha ha, right back at you. If you don't want the innocent to die, take out the returning dragon palm. We don't care if our blades get slick with the blood of one more man. With that, the bandit brushed the edge along Zhuo Fan's face and sported a bloodthirsty grin. Luo Yunchang pursed her lips, hesitation visible in her eyes, yet still decided to close them. Zhuo Fan understood. Although the young miss had no plan to save him by taking the martial art out, as his mistress, it filled him with gratitude just from hesitating. But in the end, it would come down to him if he could save himself. Taking a look back at the bandit, he found a fat man of the same height at 7th layer of foundation establishment. It should be doable. Zhuo Fan clenched his fist and gathered Yuan Qi in his left, eyes flashing with ruthlessness. Humph, since you're so stubborn, Zhuo Fan will be the first to die because of you. Steward's son's hand dropped, staring at Luo Yunchang's pain-filled eyes. Fatty, kill him. He grinned, and raised the blade way up high. It was then that a thump echoed out, soon followed by bone snapping along with the fat man's wails. His blade had long ago slipped from his hand. Zhuo Fan picked it up and decapitated the man. Blood spurted and a large head trailed the air. Zhuo Fan was only in the 5th layer of foundation establishment, yet his Yuan Qi was something only a Qi condensation expert would possess. In a moment of the fat man's ignorance, he elbowed his chest and snapped his ribcage. He followed with a swing of the sword in one smooth motion. None could even react as the fat man's head flew from his shoulder. Plop. The bloody head rolled around and stopped right before Steward's son. He looked dumbly at the familiar face, incredulous of the outcome. He saw Zhuo Fan grow up in the Luo clan and knew the kind of person he was. He was honest to a fault, a slave begging to be picked on, yet this sheep bared its fangs like a tiger, killing a 7th layer foundation establishment expert in one strike. It was done with such brutality that it even shook the bandits. The guards on Luo clan's side were even more devastated. Was he the same man they used to laugh with, the same honest-to-God Zhuo Fan? Leaving the kill aside, his quick and brutal act was something not even the captain of the guards could match. Every single one of them stood in shock, watching dumbly as blood dripped down Zhuo Fan's blade, to the point they forgot even to breathe. If Zhuo Fan didn't take this chance to leave, he'd never get another. Zhuo Fan's eyes squinted, pressed his advantage and threw the bloody saber at Steward Sunday, all the while running for young miss and young master. By the time the saber arrived, he was already before Luo Yunchang. One hand held Luo Yunhai while the other grabbed her, running like hell deeper into the forest. Luo Yunchang was still in a daze, letting him pull her. Steward's son saw the target slipping away again and panicked, after them. But the captain and his guards were there to block them. Humph, think you can stop us? Steward's son said with cruelty. The captain smiled and shook his head. No, but we can buy them some time for them to get away. Hey, with you dead, you still think they can escape? Taking one last look in their direction, the captain nodded. If it was before, perhaps no. But they have that boy. The guards nodded, with their trust in Zhuo Fan beginning to grow in their hearts. They might not know why Zhuo Fan was so bold all of a sudden, but with him next to the young miss and young master, their chances of survival were high. Gnashing his teeth, Steward's son looked darkly beyond them. That brat dares to meddle in my affairs. Once I get my hands on him, I will flay him. I'll make him wish for death. Chapter 6, Vile Servant. Actually. Chapter 6, Vile Servant. Actually. Zhuo Fan carried Luo Yunhai in one hand while the other pulled the tender arm of Luo Yunchang in his mad dash, leaving behind the cries and wails of the guards at their backs. Wait, we can't just leave them. Luo Yunchang recovered after a while and said anxiously. Zhuo Fan kept going without paying her any heed. Let go. Luo Yunchang saw him disobeying her and threw his hand off. Zhuo Fan stopped and stared her down. We need to go back. We can't let the guards throw their life away for us. Can you beat them? Said Zhuo Fan. Luo Yunchang sighed with a frown. The others are bad enough, but they have Steward's son, in the 6th layer of Qi condensation, while I am only in the 3rd layer and the captain in the 4th. Even if we join forces, we are still no match for him. What's the point of returning then? Let's go. Zhuo Fan snorted and grabbed her again to dash. It was now that the child in his other hand squirmed. Stinky slave, how dare you talk back to your master? Apologize to my sister and I won't let you but blossom in pain. Zhuo Fan looked in a daze, The pup bearing his fangs in his arm then looked at Luo Yunchang. The young miss was angry. Recalling he was but a mere servant of the Luo clan, only now did his disrespectful words sink in, but so what? He wasn't the real Zhuo Fan anyway. Moreover, they weren't exactly the same revered Luo clan either. Your family is on the brink of being exterminated, yet you have time to nitpick. If not for the heart demon, the majestic demonic emperor would have never even minded your trifling matters. Brat, think I won't make your butt blossom? Zhuo Fan stared at Luo Yunhai. You dare, slave. Luo Yunhai glared back without fear. He grew up in the manor and knew of the gap in their status. How could he ever come to fear a servant's threat? Such a pity the one before him wasn't Luo clan's servant. With a grin, Zhuo Fan bent him over the knee, pulled his pants and slapped like no tomorrow. The sonorous slaps rang in their ears, striking Luo Yunhai and Luo Yunchang dumb. They never dreamed of this ever happening. A servant daring to slap a master's bum, to the point even the bratty Luo Yunhai forgot about the pain. But he soon got a taste of the scorching sting on his rear. Impudent. Luo Yunchang cried in alarm, wrestling her brother from him and into her embrace. Zhuo Fan, you dare raise your hand against your master? Luo Yunchang was known in the clan for her gentle nature and warm and refined demeanor, a girl from a wealthy family that never got angry. But Zhuo Fan's act took the cake and made the rage inside her burn like never before. Zhuo Fan avoided her eyes as he sneered, not as daring as young miss. To the point of wasting time berating others while the enemy is just around the corner. The noise behind them was getting weaker. Zhuo Fan and Luo Yunchang were clear. The guards couldn't hold on much longer. I only slapped him a few times, but if you do not run, those men will soon take his life. Zhuo Fan pointed at Luo Yunhai. Luo Yunhai was still angry, but Zhuo Fan's words struck close to home. Her brother was the only male left in the clan. She could sacrifice herself, but nothing must happen to him. After some thought, she became serious. Zhuo Fan, take young master and leave while I stall them. I refuse, blurted Zhuo Fan. If you dare leave, I will kill this brat. You. She was at a loss for words. Never would she have imagined her clan would house such an arrogant and impudent servant that would dare threaten their master. I've lived in the Luo clan for all my life and do not know the surrounding. If you leave, me and the brat won't make it. Zhuo Fan continued. Luo Yunchang nodded in silence, her anger cooling. It made sense. But the next words flamed her anger to new heights, staring daggers at him. It won't mean much even if you die, but try not to take me down with you. You. Luo Yunchang turned green, but held it in. He ignored the pair and turned to walk. Is there any place nearby where we can hide? Snorting, Luo Yunchang glared at him while ignoring the insufferable servant. But she was a young miss after all, and even though her anger never waned, she still knew to look past it in this dangerous situation. There's only farmland around us for 100 miles, and only the west face of the Blackwind Mountain is the only place few people venture in. It is a forest covered in fog that not even the mountain bandits know in detail. Then, that's where we'll go. Zhuo Fan nodded. Carry your brother and lead the way. She snorted and walked forward without sparing him another look. Just how could she stumble upon such bad luck, where the two siblings were now accompanied by an arrogant and rotten slave? She was in front and he was in the back. It was as if the master-servant roles were reversed. Never had the siblings suffered such humiliation. Chapter 7 Wraith-Array. Chapter 7 Wraith-Array. Looking for proofreaders for this novel. 4 hours later, they found them before a fog-wreathed forest. Zhuo Fan's eyes flashed each time they roamed over the trees swallowed by the mist. This is misty forest, covered in fog year-round. Any who enters will find it hard to come out. Luo Yunchang hesitated. We might lose them there, but we might also get lost for all eternity. Zhuo Fan didn't pay her much heed, inspecting the area, especially the mountain in the east, which was surrounded by clouds. Is that Blackwind Mountain? Luo Yunchang nodded. My dad said Blackwind Mountain's mountain lord has great power, no less than his. Our clans have been fine for decades, yet, for some reason, their bandits attacked out manor. Hey, good place. Zhuo Fan rubbed his chin, showing heartfelt admiration. Azure dragon in the east, white tiger in the west, vermilion bird in the south, black tortoise in the north, and Chilene's horn in the center, breaking the sky. This is a natural array. Zhuo Fan mumbled. Such a pity, no one knowledgeable discovered it. Now that I'm here, I'll make this place my second Devil Mountain. Zhuo Fan's eyes flashed with joy. He was clear of this mountain's value. If this was sacred domain, only a saint could grab hold of such a place. Young miss, want to kill Steward's son and the rest here? Zhuo Fan turned his head. Luo Yunchang was startled. They only numbered 3 while a strong party was hunting them down, and they had hardly enough time to escape. Just how were they going to destroy them? Luo Yunhai snorted and smiled wryly at Zhuo Fan. Stinky slave, stop bragging. Is your butt itchy again? Zhuo Fan's glare stuck Luo Yunhai's words in his throat. That round of slapping to his rear told him this servant couldn't care less for this young master. Humph, a wise man knows when to retreat. Once I get home, I'll see how tough you are. He mumbled on his sister's shoulder with her brother in her arms, and to avoid the vile servant's wrath, Luo Yunchang asked in doubt, how? With a light smile, Zhuo Fan extended his arm. Young miss, how many spirit stones do you have? Please give them all to me. What do you need them for? Luo Yunchang watched him with a vigilant eye. Ha ha ha, young miss misunderstands. I'm not trying to take advantage of a declined clan and turn into an evil servant that robs it. All my actions are for your safety. Humph, still consider yourself a loyal servant. The way I see it, there's not a viler servant out there who can outmatch you. Luo Yunchang rubbed her pitiful brother's butt, as she thought that, but still gave him her ring. This is all my wealth. If you dare lie to me, I will never forgive you. Zhuo Fan took it with a smile and sank in the mist. Wait for me here. Humph, this servant is too outrageous. He even dares to order his master. Sister, you need to punish him for me. Luo Yunhai raved once the servant was gone. She shook her head and looked at the roaming mist. Yunhai, he might be rude, but is always helping us, much better than those strong hypocrites. We can't reward kindness with enmity. Luo Yunhai thought for a moment, then nodded. Yes, it's all that damned steward's son's fault. Luo Yunchang was pleased and praised him. Yunhai, you're growing up. But then he hissed through his teeth, as for that stinky slave, he should be spanked like no tomorrow. Killing him is too easy for him. Luo Yunchang was silent. Zhuo Fan walked among the white fog, his deep eyes taking in his surroundings. From time to time, his hand flashed and a spirit stone flew out from the ring and disappeared into the ground. Despite it being his first time here, he was remarkably familiar with its layout. His path never once was disturbed by the fog. In but a quarter of an hour, he traveled across the entire forest. 9 underworld gates open. 4 cardinal wraith array activate. His hands made signs with lightning speed. While he spoke the incantation from the 9 Serenities secret records, the wind shifted and the sky darkened. With wails, grey shadows fell from the sky and hid in the misty forest. The fog reddened, then blackened, the same color as the sky. Constant shrieks came out. The siblings held closer to each other, shaking in fear while taking steps back for some semblance of comfort. Yet the wails and shrieks stopped as soon as they started, while the sky cleared up and even the sun peeked through the clouds. Misty forest's fog dissipated and revealed a gasping Zhuo Fan walking over. What just happened? What did you do? Luo Yunchang watched him with bewilderment. He only waved and entered the forest. Follow me. Luo Yunchang was suspicious, however she led her brother behind. Zhuo Fan had a mysterious appearance that made the two not voice their doubts. When they arrived at an ancient tree, Zhuo Fan said, "Stay below this tree for now. I will teach you how to control the wraith array, and when Steward's son comes, you can use it to kill them." What? This is an array? Luo Yunchang was stunned. Arrays were even more precious than martial arts in this world. No sect would ever dare release even a normal array to outside. Even if the auction had a first-grade array, it would still sell for hundreds of thousands spirit stones. They were rare and in high demand. If their cloud manor had a protective array, they would have never sunk so low from mere bandits. Yet, at this very moment, a mere servant casually set up an array. It was impossible that this feat would result in the young miss being shocked silly. Chapter 8, Baiting the Enemy. Chapter 8, Baiting the Enemy. Looking for proofreaders for this novel. How can you? Forget about how for now, and do what I said. This is a bewildering array which can affect the perceptions of others inside. And this is also a killing array, controlling wraiths to kill your enemies. Luo Yunchang copied stiffly as Zhuo Fan performed the gestures. However, he was too fast. She could only watch him do it as she fumbled to a stop. Unable to remember the movements as he carried on, Stuck on the last sign, she did sigh. How are you so slow? This is the simplest method. Zhuo Fan got angry and cursed. If you keep going like this, Steward's son will be upon us. We might as well just serve ourselves on a silver platter. You're as slow as a pig. All her life, Luo Yunchang was handled with finesse and attention a pearl would need. She received others' love and respect. Never has she been mistreated like this, degraded to such a degree. Glittering tears started welling in her eyes as she lowered her head. Yet, she persevered. Seeing his sister humiliated, he found courage and shouted at Zhuo Fan, "Stinky slave, don't mock my sister." Zhuo Fan just shook his head, not having the time to bicker with the brat. He found his yuan qi was only enough to start the array, failing to control it. If one were to speak of a complete wraith array, even if none of them controlled it, a trash like Steward's son would end up beaten to a pulp either way. However, he only had around 1,000 spirit stones. If not for being a natural array, he wouldn't have been able to set even a damaged one. It was now in the hands of third-layer Qi condensation young miss to control the array, but for her, the method was long and complicated. It was hard to grasp. Worse, they were on the clock. Helpless, Zhuo Fan embraced her from behind and took hold of her hands. What are you doing? Luo Yunchang froze up as her cheek blossomed with red. Don't move and let me guide you. Zhuo Fan led her hands and taught her the signs. Despite catching his intent, being embraced by an unfamiliar man threw her heart in chaos and cheeks burned hotter. Since this was the first time it ever happened to her, each time her mind drifted, a voice would ring in her ear, "Pay attention." She peeked at him and saw how serious Zhuo Fan was, that his actions were not aimed to take advantage of her. Humph, he knows when to be a gentleman. Luo Yunchang calmed down and her body drew nearer to his. Feeling the strong arm behind her, this was the first time in the last 3 days she felt safe. Steward Sunday. They went towards the misty forest. 10 miles outside the misty forest, a lanky bandit checked for tracks and reported to him with cold laughter. Steward's son straightened his white mustache. Quite a good hiding place. We know the mountain area, but not that eerie place. However, Steward's son looked at the bound captain and his eyes flash with an evil glint. Captain Pang, you're up soon. With how kind young miss is, she won't ignore your pleas. Tui, don't think you can use me to threaten young miss. His eyes were bloodshot as he glared at Steward's son. You'd better kill me, or I will murder you and avenge my fellow guards. Ha ha ha, when I get the martial skill, I'll be happy to fulfill your wish. Squinting his eyes, Steward's son let out a creepy laughter. Let's go. It took an hour for their group of 20 to reach Misty Forest, yet before they could get any closer, snoring came from a man sleeping against a tree. A careful look identified him as Zhuo Fan, Steward's son. It's the one who killed the fatty. Woken up by the voice, Zhuo Fan yawned and opened his weary eyes. Seeing Steward's son and company, he showed no fear, no anxiety. Instead, a smile. Steward's son, I've waited so long to see you. Frowning, Steward's son watched him. He eyed him with utmost care, yet nothing seemed to tell him anything. He was just calm. What a deep-rooted schemer you are. I underestimated you, thought Steward's son. If it were any other time, he would have never paid attention to a servant, but ever since Steward's son witnessed Zhuo Fan kill so brutally, Steward's son's image of him turned upside down. This punk not only hid deeply, but is also ruthless. If he matures, only suffering awaits. Zhuo Fan, you've quite the nerve to show off before me, squinted Steward's son at him. Zhuo Fan cut to the chase instead of replying. Steward's son, want to make a deal? What deal? I'll give you the Luo clan's young master and mistress. So, secure my career in Blackwind Mountain. What? Not only was Steward's son shocked, but even the guard captain was also dumbfounded. He rested his hopes on Zhuo Fan to take the siblings far away. Who'd have thought Zhuo Fan would defect and use them as bargaining chips? Why are you doing this? Luo clan hasn't scorned you. Doubts arose in Steward's son's heart. Ha ha ha. Then why do you? Luo clan treated you even better. Steward's son reddened at this and felt his rage boiling as he calmed himself. Zhuo Fan continued, every man for himself. With how much the Luo clan has fallen, reviving it isn't something one man can do. Why should I walk towards my death? Using them to secure my life is but human nature. He picked the red rope from the ground. Who followed into the mist? Young miss is at one of the ends of the rope. I left a few forks on the rope along the way that only I know about. Steward's son nodded as he grabbed it. Good plan, to use a rope to mark your way. And you even included forks to safeguard the right trail for yourself. A true double-crosser, ha ha ha. He gave the rope back. Deal, lead the way. But don't even think of playing tricks. Steward's son, I am an honest man, smiled Shuafan. Steward's son sneered. I would have believed you before, but now, who would? The two locked their eyes, each laughing as their looks hid devious thoughts. The captain's hair stood on end. He kept cursing Steward's son as a rotten and vile human, while he barked at Shuafan as one who betrayed their master. Though everyone ignored him as he was escorted by other men as they ventured into the thick mist. Chapter 9: The Array's Power. Chapter 9: The Array's Power. The row of people stuck together and held on to the red rope as they walked through the mist. Shuafan went first with Steward's son right behind him, holding on to him with a firm grip on to prevent the boy from escaping because of the thick mist. One couldn't even see the figure of the one in front and relied on their hands to feel their neighbor at the heart of the misty forest, where it was impossible for anyone to escape. Shuafan stopped. What is it? Steward's son was feeling apprehensive, tightening his grip on Shuafan's clothes with a snicker. Shuafan said, Steward's son, we'll be pairing here. It's best if you travel the underworld river without me. With acute fear, Steward's son discovered he fell in Shuafan's trap. He pulled Shuafan close and slapped him. The clothes were turned to ribbons, but instead of Shuafan, they held a log. When did he escape? He'd been holding tight on Shuafan to prevent his escape, yet reality showed the opposite. Turn back, quick. Steward's son rushed from where they came. As soon as he shouted, the men used the rope to retrace their path, but then, a shout came from the mist, the rope has been cut. It was as if lightning struck them and they all turned pale. How would they get out of this thick mist without the rope? Steward's son stomped as he gnashed his teeth. Blast it. That brat got us. Bring that damn pang over. Steward's son, he's gone. Bastard. Steward's son punched the ground and made a meter-wide hole in rage. He was a schemer himself, yet he fell at the hands of a stinky brat. Damn punk, I've played this game longer than you. Don't think a puny misty forest can trap me. Steward's son roared towards the sky. Once I get out, I'll tear you to pieces. Ha ha ha, you'll never have the chance. With Shuafan's mad laughter as the signal, the mist reddened. Why is the mist turning red? They were in shock by the sudden change. They were bandits that killed people for a living, yet these strange circumstances had them on edge. Steward's son, you are wiser than most. Can you tell us what this is? Even though the bandit shouted, only silence echoed back. He felt around him yet touched no one, as if everyone around him vanished and left him all alone. He wasn't the only one. The people that hung onto the rope began to vanish one at a time. Steward's son could hardly believe what was happening. See, can this be an array? One as old as Steward's son has seen many things and experienced even more, yet the more he knew, the more he realized how terrible arrays were, and fears grip his heart. An array worked using heaven and earth's energy. As long as a man controlled it, it could wipe out a dozen equal to him in power. Even if tens of experts gathered, they still could not measure to its power of all the possibilities he thought of. Not once did he consider being trapped in an array. Shuafan, who exactly are you? Steward's son trembles from the feeling of dread. He saw at last that Shuafan wasn't just any ordinary man. How could a simple man know how to use or set up arrays? If Shuafan had taken out an array when they met, he wouldn't have had the nerve to chase him. Standing in the center of the array, Luo Yunchang was clear of the situation. Her eyes drifted to Zhuo, filled with intrigue. Squinting, Shuafan kept a cold and callous expression as he said, "Kill them." She followed his order by following his hand signs. The blood-red fog changed again, this time black, and swallowed all that laid within. Now they couldn't even see themselves, only their ears picked the mournful wails of thousands of wraiths. With fear as their only companion, they lost all their will to resist once the black streams of energy started burrowing inside them. They felt their soul devoured yet were powerless to resist. All succumbed to terror at this point. Smirking, Shuafan's eyes shined with glee. He left Luo Yunchang and sat cross-legged in another center of the array. The 9 Serenities secret records stated that the demon transformation art user had a backdoor into all arrays. The men in the array were driven mad, and all he needed to do now was to absorb their yuan qi. Chapter 10: Constant Breakthrough. Chapter 10: Constant Breakthrough. Looking for proofreaders for this novel. Ashes to ashes, dust to dust, 9 underworld wraiths return to me. Zhuo Fan's hands moved as he stole the array from under Luo Yunchang's control while also making the clear figures of Steward's son and the rest disappear from her mind. Luo Yunchang felt it odd and redo the signs to no avail. The misty forest was drowned with shrieks and wails. Steward's son and the rest became pitch black but still had a sliver of awareness left as black shadows left their body each time one flew out. It evoked cries of torment as if pieces were ripped from its body. When the last shadow left, the cries stopped and so did their life. Their body dried up like a mummy and they turned to dust in the darkness. The shadows returned like bees to Zhuo Fan and entered his body. He accepted them with a calm face and soon his body turned black just like Steward's son did. When the last shadow burrowed, he began doing hand signs to practice the demon transformation art. The still black yuan qi inside him boiled as it charged through his meridians and settled in his dantian. And his power grew with it in an instant. He entered the 6th layer of foundation establishment in the next instant. He was in the 7th and then, he was at peak 7th layer. He kept going like this through the 8th layer, then the 9th. Until the peak of foundation establishment he opened his eyes and took a deep breath as he clenched his hands, feeling the power course through him this time. It wasn't as easy. The wraiths were almost spent when he demonified the yuan qi for himself. But with his experience as a veteran demonic cultivator, he understood that breaking through in a state of exhausted yuan qi holds much more value with his future progress. He clenched his teeth and operated the cultivation method. He sucked the wraiths dry and used the remaining yuan qi. He had to make one final push. Bang! Zhuo Fan heard something explode. He felt as if a dam broke and his body coursed with powerful yuan qi then settled in his dantian to replenish his spent reserves. This act of scraping for the last traces of energy enlarged his meridians by more than double qi condensation. Zhuo Fan's eyes opened with glee. Even when he did this in his previous life, his meridians were nowhere near as wide as they were now. And the yuan qi in his dantian allowed him to face an expert at qi condensation. He was 3 times as powerful as before. He released a long breath and made some hand signs to release the wraiths. They turned back to grey and he went back to normal. When all wraiths were gone, Zhuo Fan stood up and a single wave from his hands pushed away the black fog. Allowing the sun's rays to land on the forest, he could now control the array himself. No longer needing Luo Yunchang's assistance, he showed a small smile as he looked at the sky. Now that I'm in the qi condensation, I can practice some martial art. Despite the end of Steward's son and his retinue of bandits, Zhuo Fan had managed to free the Luo clan siblings. It could be said Zhuo Fan benefited the most out of this. Without devouring Steward's son, he would have never reached qi condensation. It was at this stage that he could practice martial arts. Later, not only could he defend himself, but also easier to devour others, becoming stronger himself. Zhuo Fan. A clear shout came from Luo Yunchang as she came over, embracing her brother. Meanwhile, the guard captain followed behind. Where did you run off to? Why did I lose control of the array? Perhaps there were too few spirit stones and the array collapsed. I just saw Steward's son die. This is worthy of celebration. No one escaped, dodged Zhuo Fan. He wasn't about to reveal his secret, because in this world, demonic cultivators were strong, uncanny, and cultivated with shocking speed, and his demon transformation art was even more monstrous. If others knew, he'd be a public enemy. This was why he died last time. So, for his second life, he made sure to avoid any mistakes. Luo Yunchang nodded, believing him. After some hesitation, Captain Pang toughened his resolve and kneeled. Brother Zhuo Fan, I was too reckless before, unaware of your plan, and still cursed you. If you must punish me, I will accept any that you might have for me. Even if you ask for my head, I will gladly offer it. Zhuo Fan nodded inside. Captain Pang was a loyal retainer. If Zhao Chen had this level of devotion, Zhuo Fan wouldn't have fallen so low. Sighing inside, he helped Captain Pang up. Captain Pang is a captain of the guards while I am just a mere servant. How could I receive such courtesy? Moreover, we have young Miss to thank for setting up an array to eliminate Steward's son's group. Luo Yunchang watched him, confused. Only nodding when he threw Luo Yunchang a look. Although Luo Yunchang didn't know why Zhao Chen avoided admitting he was the one who set the array, he did save her and still deferred for her opinion. Captain Pang turned to Luo Yunchang in shock. Young Miss knows arrays? Luo Yunchang laughed, embarrassed, forced to admit it. Heaven protected the Luo clan. Young Miss knows arrays. Our rise is imminent. Captain Pang threw his head back and laughed, exhilarated by the prospect. Shuo Fan rubbed his nose. Luo Yunchang stole a glance at Shuo Fan. If Luo clan is to rise, it's only thanks to this man. Chapter 11 Entering Windgaze City. Chapter 11 Entering Windgaze City. Shuo Fan understood her and quickly said, "Now that we no longer have steward's son breathing down our necks, what does young Miss intend to do next?" We were planning on seeking shelter at Cai Manor." Captain Pang spoke before she could. This captain of the guards no longer treated Shuo Fan as a common servant, but of equal status. "You should know that Cai clan's young master has a marriage agreement with young Miss." Windgaze City's Cai clan? Shuo Fan rubbed his chin, nodding. According to this body's memories, Cai clan was the best clan in the Windgaze City, of the same power as Luo clan. If he could hand over the Luo siblings to them, then the grudge would be settled and his heart demon lightened. Maybe it could even be dispelled. Shuo Fan nodded at this thought. "All right, let's go to the Cai clan." But not before he took one last look at Blackwind Mountain, mumbling, "I'll be back." At the same time, in a dark cave atop Blackwind Mountain, a malevolent youth was on a large seat. His eyes were filled with cruelty as they flicked to his subordinate. "Any news of steward's son?" "Our reporting to young lord, steward's son said he'd soon have the martial art." The bandit was shaking like a leaf, fearing to even meet the youth's eyes. "Ha ha ha, withdraw." "Yes." The bandit wiped the sweat from his head, not lingering one moment more if he could help it. From fear of being eaten, the youth rose and moved behind the cover placed at the back of his seat. An old man laid there, glaring with fury at him. His lips trembled but no words came out. The youth patted the man's hand with a smile. "Master, be at ease, your friend left first and is waiting for you. Once returning Dragon Palm arrives, I will reunite you two old friends." The old man's eyes were bloodshot at this, as if wanting to eat him alive. Despite the constant trembling, he could do nothing else in response. The youth's savage and vicious laughter echoed throughout the cave. Windgaze City was the largest city in 100 miles and a 10-day journey from the Luo clan. From fear of other bandits pursuing them, Shuo Fan and the others sped up and reached it in 5. Once inside, the bustling of the city assaulted them while also bringing some comfort. All the tension accumulated over these past days seemed to seep from them now that she was finally around other people. Luo Yunchang's strained face finally revealed a smile. "Yunhai, look there." Pulling his hand, she pointed at a juggling stall. Captain Pang was happy to know the fall of the young Miss clan didn't put a damper on her spirits. "Brother Shuo Fan, I seem to recall you never came to Windgaze City." Shuo Fan just nodded. Captain Pang was stunned at that Windgaze City's bustle was famous around these parts. He recalled the last time he came here and was so excited he couldn't sleep for 3 nights. Why was it that a homegrown kid who never saw the flourishing city didn't even flinch? Of course, how could he know? In Shuo Fan's eyes, this place was no different than a village. "Old Pang, is Cai clan far from here?" Sharing hardships brought them closer and even started calling each other brothers. Luo Yunchang spoke before Captain Pang could. "We don't need to go so quickly. I and Yunhai must make an official visit first, then I will come see you. Stay at a tavern in the meantime." "So annoying," frowned Shuo Fan with a bitter smile. Captain Pang just shrugged. "Can't be helped. There's no one rushing us now. If we go there now, they will laugh at us for not showing propriety." "Fine, you go first." Shuo Fan sighed, but nodded. As long as the siblings were safe and he gained his freedom, waiting for a bit more wouldn't hurt. After 5 days of silence, someone couldn't restrain their temper and began running his mouth. "Humph, stinky slave. Windgaze City is my sister's domain. Just you wait, see how I'll deal with you." Luo Yunhai crossed his arms and flared his nostrils, becoming the same old impertinent young master from before. Bam! He didn't get to enjoy it though, as Shuo Fan delivered a healthy kick to his rear. He flew a meter and landed on his face. "No need to wait, let's settle this now." Luo Yunchang rushed to help her brother and glared at Shuo Fan. "Why do you always pick on a child? It's your brother who needs a spanking." Shuo Fan shot her a look then waved. "Go already. After you settle in, if you still look at me with such discontent, I will not hesitate to leave you." Luo Yunchang snorted and left while hugging her brother. Luo Yunhai rested his head on her shoulder. face red as if choking but not daring to make a peep. Even a child like him understood the two siblings had no power in the forest and suffered at the hands of that despicable and dastardly servant. But now that they were in Windgaze City, his sister's turf, it didn't seem to make much difference. Why am I getting beaten by that damn slave again? Does this slave fear not even heaven and earth? Luo Yunhai never saw anyone like him in the Luo clan. Captain Pang watched this unfold with shock to say the least, as his eyes were close to popping. Not even he knew Zhuo Fan was so daring and impertinent that he'd beat up the young master right in front of young Miss. Yet she did not make a complaint nor retaliate. Young Miss dotted on her brother, never once being harsh with him. Yet Zhuo Fan trampled over young master with no regard to her with uncanny ease and skill. Now he understood why young master looked at Zhuo Fan like a mouse eyeing a cat. Wiping the sweat off his forehead, Captain Pang said, "Brother Zhuo Fan, young master is your lord. If not out of respect for the young miss, do it out of respect for her husband. How could you kick him?" Zhuo Fan laughed then shrugged. No one was a lord in his eyes. Everything he did was to remove the heart demon. Chapter 12 Odd Girl. Chapter 12 Odd Girl. They won't come back for a while. Let's stroll around the city. Zhuo Fan turned around and walked away. Captain Pang knew he didn't take his words to heart and sigh as he followed. They were soon in the market area. This was where rogue cultivators sold their wares, to exchange items or other cultivating materials. With Zhuo Fan's experience, he should be able to find goods which others overlooked. The two visited many stalls, and many times, Captain Pang wanted to put his hands in his pocket, but when he saw Zhuo Fan walking away with a dull look, he followed suit. Perhaps he wasn't aware, but the Grand Captain of the Guard was reduced to following Zhuo Fan at every step. Since when did the world overflow with overlooked treasures? Let's just go. Zhuo Fan scoured the market but nothing caught his eye. It was then he heard a ruckus. He went to see a stall owner and a red-faced girl in a heated dispute. He led Captain Pang through the crowd center and saw the girl's appearance. She wore white clothes, with fine eyebrows like a crescent moon, and looked calmed and gentle. Even when yelled at, she never lost her smile, as if she never got angry. She persevered despite opposition. This black jade is fake. How is it fake? This is the purest black jade, one that if left in the sun for a day, will still feel cool to the touch. If worn as a pendant, cultivation will be much easier. The man spat non-stop about how pure it was. Young miss, do you understand what I'm saying? She shook her head, but her smile never faltered. I do not know much about black jade, but I have seen one, so I can tell this one's a fake. Ha ha ha, you saw it once and dare to say you find this one fake? Did you hear, everyone? Has there ever been such an absurd situation in the world? It has, and I know I'm right. If we talk about price, the worst black jade is worth 10 spirit stones while the best 100. Yet yours is only 3 spirit stones. Get out of here. Enough with your rubbish, little girl. Don't ruin my business. How could you possibly know of its value? The girl smiled while staring at the man. He felt a rage burning inside, but had nowhere to vent. As the saying goes, you can't strike one who only smiled. The girl kept denying the black jade's price without a solid reason. If it was any other person, he would have slapped them silly. But her smile left him powerless to even lift his hand. That black jade is indeed fake. A man's voice echoed out and the crowd saw Zhuo Fan watching the girl with a smile. Young Miss eyes are true, but cannot explain where the fault lies. As everyone knows, reality is a matter of perception. What's real can be fake and what's fake can be real. The girl was taken aback but nodded while scrutinizing him. Zhuo Fan turned to the crowd. Everyone, is it possible to prepare a few things? Sulfur, clover. He enumerated some of the most common things, and some people already bought them under everyone's eyes. Zhuo Fan threw them in water, stirred, and said to the stall owner, "Please place the black jade inside." "Humph, you're just washing it." He was also confident, even as he placed it inside, but once it entered, the water began to bubble and turn red. It even released a faint hint of blood energy. How can it be? The stall owner was shocked. The girl also watched wide-eyed, astonished. Ha ha ha, no need to be so surprised. This black jade was just an imitation that will show its real color once introduced to water. Zhuo Fan took the black jade and gave it to the owner. Now you should know this lady was right. That bastard lied to me. He sold it to me for 20 spirit stones. The stall owner gnashed his teeth. This black jade is only worth 3 spirit stones. The girl declared her assessment, then smiled to Zhuofan. Mr. has good eyes. I knew it was fake, but couldn't pinpoint the difference. I thank Mr. for his intervention. It was nothing. I have also seen this once. Zhuofan smiled. Young miss, won't you buy it? It's just 3 stones now. No need. I only wanted to inform others of the stone's real price. She chuckled and left, watching her figure fading into the crowd. Captain Pang sighed next to Zhuofan. What an odd girl. Zhuofan, on the other hand, breathed out relieved as he muttered, that girl's eyes are sharp and sinister. It's a good thing she is still inexperienced, or she would have taken the treasure without hesitation. He then turned to the black jade, eyes shining with excitement, but the stall owner was sighing as he packed his things, ready to go home. Chapter 13, Blood Spirit. Chapter 13, Blood Spirit. Never thought I'd make a mistake. The stall owner was carrying his bag while walking along a remote alley. He didn't talk, just sighed as he walked, but then a voice came from behind. Owner, please wait. He stopped with a startle and looked to see Zhuofan walking over. You're the one from before. He recognized Zhuofan. It was him who showed everyone his black jade was fake. Is there something you need? Ha ha ha, owner, I like your black jade and will pay 10 spirit stones for it. Zhuofan laughed, taking glances at the man's bag. After some muttering, the owner looked oddly at Zhuofan. Mister, you know this stone is fake, so why pay 10 spirit stones? The lady said it was worth 3. Shaking his head, Zhuofan added, even if it is fake, it can still pass off for the real thing. I might be able to sell it as a black jade. Oh, I see. You want to trick others into buying it. The owner nodded in understanding, then scanned around. Since this is the case, things are different now. It is worth much more than just 10 spirit stones. How much do you want then? Zhuofan squinted with murderous intent. At least 50. The owner showed his own sneaky side. If not, I'll just find my own target and sell it at 100. Thanks to Zhuofan's reminder, the owner realized how rare were people who could tell the real black jade from fake. He could sell the fake himself and earn a fortune. Are you buying, or do I have to look elsewhere? Seeing Zhuofan's expression, the owner knew he didn't have that many spirit stones on him. But it was fine since he could sell it himself and dupe another in the process. He walked away. Wait. The moment he took the first step, a hand grabbed his shoulder like an iron claw, eliciting a shout of pain from the owner. Owner, don't be too greedy. Zhuofan warned Humph. So what if I am? The black jade is mine and I'll sell it at whatever price I want. His voice choked as a black yuan qi entered his body. After his body turned black, a breeze scattered his dust into the wind, releasing his breath. Zhuofan felt his yuan qi grow a bit. He was a first-layer qi condensation expert. The 7th-layer foundation establishment owner hardly helped in increasing his power. He just wanted to trade, but the owner had to be ruthless and force his hand. Zhuofan took the black jade and returned to the tavern. He wasn't addicted to killing, but some people were addicted to courting death. Zhuofan met with Captain Pang at the tavern and threw him a pouch. Old Pang, here. Captain Pang didn't understand. Eh? The 10 spirit stones are all here? Didn't you buy it? Zhuofan left Captain Pang at the tavern after borrowing 10 spirit stones, saying he found something that caught his eye. Yet the same spirit stones were left in the bag, untouched. Oh, that old man was so nice, he just gave it to me. Zhuofan dodged also. Old Pang, guard my door and don't let anyone come in. With that, he closed the door to his room. Captain Pang found it strange, but since they were like brothers now, he helped him out. As such, he sat before Zhuofan's door as a guard. Zhuofan was clear as to what happened beyond his door and nodded, pleased. He lucked out in finding such a loyal man. Next, he settled the black jade on the table and released his dark yuan qi. Bam! The stone's exterior cracked and fell, revealing a blood-red light. It was no longer a black jade but a bloody one. Moreover, it gave the impression of a heart as it flashed on and off like heartbeats. I knew it. It's the blood spirit. Zhuofan swallowed, his face working hard to restrain the obvious delight in his voice. The blood spirit stems from any stone. Its only requirement of formation is to be bathed in the blood of millions of people, absorbing the essence of sun and moon for thousands of years. It would take form. It was a demonic cultivator treasure, rarest of treasures. A cultivator would use the blood spirit to form a blood infant. In battle, he could send the blood infant to absorb the opponent's blood essence then kill him. And the blood infant could grow along with the cultivator. Once Zhuo Fan grew strong enough, even an emperor wouldn't dare mess with it. According to the 9 Serenities secret records, there was once an ancient demonic cultivator expert, Patriarch Blood Demon, that trained the blood infant to the saint stage. Even the ancient 10 emperors were unwilling to make an enemy out of him. Patriarch Blood Demon felt invincible and went to challenge 9 Serenities Emperor for the title of the strongest demonic cultivator. It was a drawn-out battle, with the 9 Serenities Emperor heavily wounded at the end, barely overcoming the Patriarch Blood Demon by half a move. However, the 9 Serenities Emperor obtained Patriarch Blood Demon's secret method to raise the blood infant, improved it, and added it to the demon transformation art. The 9 Serenities Emperor wanted to train the blood infant too, but never got the chance. Never did he, Zhuo Fan, the demonic emperor, think he'd have such a stroke of luck after rebirthing to train the blood infant if he had it in his past life. A saint would have been nothing. That thought made him eager to slash his wrist and pour his blood onto the blood jade. Chapter 14, Refining the Blood Infant. Chapter 14, Refining the Blood Infant. Plop, plop. Just like how an infant breathed, each drop of blood landed on the stone and disappeared the next instant. The stone started to throb and the sensation only grew stronger with each drop of blood. Zhuo Fan smiled viciously and pushed out more blood for the jade. If he wanted to refine the blood infant, he needed to bathe it in his blood until the blood spirit synchronized both their breathing and heartbeat. The seconds trickled by as Zhuo Fan's blood thinned, but the blood spirit was never sated, devouring everything he gave. Zhuo Fan licked his dried lips, growing paler as his mind was clouded. He knew the loss of blood was too great, but he'd come too far now. There was only one chance to refine the blood infant. If he stopped, it'd be like throwing a child away. It would think Zhuo Fan abandoned it and would never approve of him ever again. This was why there was no going back. Once Zhuo Fan started the process after an hour, Zhuo Fan felt the world spinning. If he dared keep this up, it would endanger his life. If his life came at an end, the blood spirit would lose its meaning. Just as he was considering abandoning the process, an indescribable feeling arose in his heart. Zhuo Fan was stunned, then overjoyed. His mind and the blood spirit were now connected. He held onto the bloodstone and activated the demon transformation art. Black yuan qi enveloped the stone and strands of blood left it to enter Zhuo Fan. Finally, the bloodstone shattered with a loud sound and a red glow shot for his body. Zhuo Fan checked in glee and saw the red palm-sized infant resting in his dantian. Sensing his eyes, the infant opened his eyes then went to sleep. This is the blood infant. After a moment of stupefaction, he jumped in joy. He never thought it would be so easy to refine the blood infant. Even though he succeeded, he lost too much blood. When he stood up, his legs went soft and hit the ground. But even that couldn't wipe the grin off his face. Now that I have the blood infant, the next step is to settle on a martial art to learn. Blood palm, a mid-mortal ranked martial art. The palm would rain havoc to one's blood and reverse its flow. Thanks to also having the blood infant, it was now savage enough to even damage one's blood essence. Despite a mere mid-mortal ranked, its power was as strong as a high mortal ranked martial art. It might even surpass it. 10 days later the door opened with a creak and Zhuo Fan came out grinning. Captain Pang rose to his feet and rubbed his eyes. Why did you take so long? Cai Manor already sent someone over. Seeing the dead tired old Pang, Zhuo Fan smiled. Old Pang, thank you for your hard work. Ari, what hard work between brothers? But we cannot let young miss and young master wait for too long. You're not curious what I've been doing the past 10 days? That is your business. You'll tell me when you want to. Captain Pang waved indifferently, pulling Zhuo Fan with haste towards Cai Manor. Zhuo Fan was touched seeing this rough man. Despite not knowing each other for long, old Pang had complete trust in him. This never happened for all his life as demonic emperor. They arrived an hour later before a majestic gate with a sign inscribed in golden letters, Cai Manor. Just when they were about to enter, the guards stopped them. Stop. Who are you to dare enter Cai Manor? Captain Pang clasped his hand. Ha ha ha, I am Luo Clan's captain of the guard, Pang Yu, and this is Luo Clan's steward, Zhuo Fan. My young miss and young master are guests in your home. Zhuo Fan was taken aback. Since when did he become the Luo Clan's steward? Pang Yu knew what he was thinking and whispered, 8 days ago, Cai Clan's men came to say you are Luo Clan's steward. Young Miss must have done it. Congratulations, Brother Zhuo, hey. Shaking his head out of helplessness, Zhuo Fan let out a bitter smile. He didn't want to be some steward, but to entrust the safety of the siblings to the Cai clan and free himself of the heart demon. How could the Grand Demonic Emperor be a puny clan's steward? But just as how he looked down on the Luo clan, so did the guards of the Cai manor. The two guards shot a glance filled with contempt. Humph, another two showed up to cheat their way to a free meal. Hey, what did you say? Captain Pang was pissed and wanted to argue, but Zhuo Fan stopped him. They walked inside. Captain Pang didn't understand. Why did you stop me? Zhuo Fan only had a grave expression. These two servers' attitude was a reflection of their lords. Nothing good would come out of talking to them. The two needed to find Luo Yunchang and understand what was happening. The Cai manor might not be such a good place to place his trust in. After some inquiry, they arrived at the siblings' dwelling. Seeing the wretched place they lived in, even lower than the tavern rooms, Captain Pang cursed, "Why is the Cai clan treating young miss and young master like this? They are even less than guests. Not just that, they don't even consider them humans." Zhuo Fan felt anger seething inside. If not because of the siblings' injustice, then because of wasting his time and energy. Let's go in. Zhuo Fan rushed next to Captain Pang, who was in a hurry to open the door. Inside, they saw Luo Yunhai sitting on the bed crestfallen. Without his usual enthusiasm, the place was crude, with just a broken chair and a broken table. Captain Pang's eyes teared up. "Young master, don't be sad. Kid, where's your sister?" Zhuo Fan was blunt. With no sympathy, it seemed Zhuo Fan's beating casted a shadow on his heart. The lifeless Luo Yunhai shivered and woke up. Luo Yunhai stammered at the raging Zhuo Fan. "Sister went to look for him. Hick, young master Cai, to help rebuild the Cloud Manor. Asking for help in this situation is asking for humiliation. Let's go look for your sister." Zhuo Fan dragged Luo Yunhai off the bed, his attitude worse than ever. Captain Pang was in a panic, wanting to stop Zhuo Fan from being so rude to his master. But Zhuo Fan's mood seemed to put him off, and all the courage left him. As such, Luo Yunhai was shaking in fear as he led them. Captain Pang cashed up to them, thinking, "Just who is the lord here?" Chapter 15, Annulled Marriage. Chapter 15, Annulled Marriage. Next to a clear stream, an elegant man was frolicking with a charming lady in red. They chased each other around the pond, laughing all the while. In this peaceful place, Luo Yunchang felt only sorrow as she watched the flirting couple. But for the good of the clan, she braced herself and stepped forward, "Brother Xiaoting." The mood of the man turned sour as he glared at her. "Luo Yunchang, I thought I made myself clear. From now on, I have nothing more to do with you. My eyes are only for you, Fei. Yeah, now get lost. Brother Xiaoting doesn't love you anymore." The lady in red sneered at her, biting her lip. Luo Yunchang's eyes missed over. At the time when Luo and Cai clans were on good terms, the parents of both families arranged their marriage. She and Cai Xiaoting grew up together and swore their love for each other, to never abandon the other. This was why the first person she thought of was her fiancé when she needed help, yet reality was cruel. Ever since they came here, she and her brother kept suffering while Cai Xiaoting had the arrogant and insufferable Sun clan's young miss, Sun Yufei. Next to him, she knew all hope of marrying into the Cai clan was lost. But for the sake of rebuilding her clan, she hoped to stir clan head Cai's amiable emotions the two clans had in the past and lend a helping hand. Yet clan head Cai Rong was cold and unfeeling to their plight, not moving an inch. The siblings stayed here for 10 days, all in hope of gaining some assistance. But since Cai Rong ignored her, she could only turn to Cai Xiaoting. "Brother Xiaoting, I don't ask for you to go through with the engagement, and only hope you can persuade your father, for old time's sake, and help the Luo clan. It has nothing to do with me. Talk with Dad." Cai Xiaoting waved his sleeve coldly. Luo Yunchang kneeled with tears streaming down her cheeks. "Brother Xiaoting, if you don't agree, I will kneel here until I die." Taking a long look at her, Cai Xiaoting frowned and was plagued by hesitation, but then Sun Yufei jumped between them and slapped Luo Yunchang. The blow threw her back and blood trickled from her mouth. "Humph, bitch, Cai Xiaoting is mine. Stay away from him." Sun Yufei's phoenix eyes glared and raved. She turned to Cai Xiaoting and said harshly, "You stay away from her too. If I find there's still something left between you, I will leave you." As if waking up, he nodded and swore, Yufei, relax, my heart is yours. Other girls are dirt compared to you. Cai Shouting's eyes showed his sincere feelings, watching her like a love-struck puppy. Sun Yufei nodded pleased, as Luo Yunchang's face turned ashen. She knew her last hope faded away. Whoosh! A shadow flashed by and 2 slaps echoed. Sun Yufei and Cai Shouting were still confused about what happened, when a red handprint appeared on their faces. Zhuo Fan stood in front of Luo Yunchang as he stared at them. A damn illicit couple dares to ruin my affairs? Who are you? Sun Yufei and Cai Shouting woke up with a start. They were geniuses of Windgaze City, qi condensation experts, and peerless in their generation, yet here was Zhuo Fan, of similar age yet faster than even them. They got slapped before they could react. Is it possible for such an individual to exist in this world? As the scene played out, only Captain Pang and Luo Yunhai came to Luo Yunchang's help. Seeing the thin figure in front, Captain Pang was even more shocked. Although he was an expert in the 4th layer of qi condensation, while Cai Shouting was in the 3rd, a level beneath him. They had different upbringings, and if they clashed, he might even lose. Yet such arrogant geniuses were slapped by Zhuo Fan. Thinking about the power he displayed in the forest, Captain Pang couldn't help but wonder how he got so strong in such a short span of time. Ignoring the two and the shocked Captain Pang, Zhuo Fan turned to the crying and pitiful Luo Yunchang and felt pain in his heart. Wretched heart demon. Zhuo Fan gnashed his teeth. With his demonic emperor disposition, he could look beyond the world's entire sufferings. How could a girl's humiliation ever cause him pain? He could only attribute it to this body's former soul, who felt anger for his master Ari. It looks like I'll be stuck with the Luo clan for some time. Zhuo Fan sighed inside as he wiped Luo Yunchang's tears. Let's go. Luo Yunchang nodded. There was no point in staying here. She carried the bitter Luo Yunhai and walked with Captain Pang's help. Humph, don't think you can run after hitting us. Sun Yufei shrieked as she barred their way. Cai Shouting chimed in, Luo Yunchang, you think this is a place you can come and go as you please? Luo Yunchang was filled with grief and balled her fists. She regretted ever coming here for help. Facing this overbearing couple in their home, she could only rein in her anger. If she were alone, she would have rather fight them for her honor, but she still had her brother. If he died, she would be too ashamed to meet her parents in the underworld river. What do you want? Luo Yunchang's voice trembled. Humph, simple. Kneel and kowtow 3 times. Sun Yufei smiled viciously and pointed at Zhuo Fan, especially him. Clenching his teeth, Captain Pang's eyes went red, wanting nothing more than to beat them senseless. This was too humiliating. Luo Yunchang hesitated, then closed her eyes as her knees bent. Kneel, all of you. They could all hear her faint, mournful voice. Sun Yufei stuck out her chin with arrogance and smiled with pride. Bam! Before they kneeled, Sun Yufei and Cai Shouting took the initiative to kneel first with a cry. Rather saying they kneeled, it was better to say their knees were forcibly smacked onto the pavement. Chapter 16, Tomorrow, you'll be beneath me. Chapter 16, Tomorrow, you'll be beneath me. Cracks spread like spiderwebs on the pavement. If they weren't qi condensation experts, their knees would be crushed. Unable to walk again, the two grimaced as they looked up to see Zhuo Fan standing before them. You again. The couple knew Zhuo Fan was the only one among the group who had the power to attack them out of the blue. Even if you beg on your knees now, I won't ever let you go. Sun Yufei glared scornfully at Zhuo Fan, howling with rage. Pa. 2 hits echoed and Zhuo Fan kicked them without hesitation. You want me to kneel? You think too highly of yourselves. Sun Yufei and Cai Shouting were dumbfounded, even forgetting the pain from the kick. Slapping them to help Luo Yunchang out of a predicament was something they could understand. To make amends, they were ordered to kneel. Yet, the steward still had the guts to strike them. Was he not afraid they would never be allowed to leave Cai Manor alive? Captain Pang was enraged by the two's act, but he looked at it from a different perspective and felt it was better to endure, or the Luo clan would be perishing here. Luo Yunchang smiled dejectedly. Others didn't understand Zhuo Fan, while she gained first-hand knowledge of his violent character in the forest. He never once acted like a servant. He just did whatever he wanted. She just could not cope with the fact their Luo clan had such a servant. Yet Luo Yunhai's attitude changed completely. He now looked at Zhuo Fan with worship and adoration. This damnable slave's nerve that always bullied him wasn't limited to picking on his masters, but even on others. He just didn't know fear. In that instant, the image of the damnable slave turned into an almighty hero coming to rescue the Luo clan who dares to act impertinently in the Cai clan's domain. A man's rebuke echoed as he appeared before them. Luo Yunchang's face dropped. She pulled her brother so close that even he could feel her anxiety. Cai Xiaoting was overjoyed. "Dad, you're here. He is looking for trouble with our Cai clan." Knowing clan head Cai Rong came, Zhuo Fan eyed him more carefully. Cai Rong looked to be in his 50s, tall and sturdy, and a powerful aura emanating from him. 8th layer of bone tempering. Smiled Zhuo Fan. Cai Rong's eyebrows jumped as shock flashed over his face. He never thought possible for a youth to see through his cultivation good eyes. Patronized Cai Rong, "May I ask who you are?" "Luo clan's steward, Zhuo Fan." Cai Rong was startled and observed him closely. He heard from Luo Yunchang that Luo clan had a new steward, since the old one turned traitor, but he didn't think it'd be one as young as Zhuo Fan. And he also gave off a strange energy. If it were any other time, a fox like him would never mess with an unknown variable like Zhuo Fan. Such a pity there was now a power in this city he could offend even less. "Uncle Cai, you must bring justice to us victims." Sun Yufei revealed the red print on her face while glaring at Zhuo Fan. Cai Rong understood the situation in an instant. He placated her. "Don't worry, Uncle Cai is here now." He then turned solemn as he looked at Luo Yunchang. "Yunchang, I took you, siblings, out of kindness. It is fine if you do not reciprocate, but why look for trouble?" Luo Yunchang shuddered, lost for words. Zhuo Fan stepped forward with a smile. "You even bully a lady at your age, clan head Cai. I needn't say anything more. Moreover, stop preaching kindness. No need to mince words, you did it out of benefit, or you wouldn't have annulled the marriage. Alright, since you want us to be hostile, I won't be lenient." Cai Rong's face changed. "Today, I will have to settle this for Yufei. You need only handle my palm attack. I won't take advantage of you and only use 2/10. Let life and death be decided like this. 2/10. As his pupils shrunk, Captain Pang shouted, "Coming from you, it's even stronger than a 9th layer chi condensation expert's all-out attack. You clearly want us dead. Uncle Cai, I beg you. Yunhai is still a child, he is innocent." Yunchang implored, but Cai Rong snorted, then smiled at Sun Yufei. "Alright, I'll go first." Zhuo Fan's mouth perked up. Whoosh. A great red palm appeared in the air. Cai Rong didn't expect for Zhuo Fan to attack first and turned serious as he sent his own palm attack at contact. The blood palm scattered and Zhuo Fan fell back 10 steps, yet was unharmed. A 2nd layer chi condensation can withstand 2/10 of my power. Cai Rong's heart was in shock, but your survival all came down to luck. Ha ha ha. The only reason I'm still alive is because I don't believe in luck. And he pointed at Cai Rong's hand with a grin, "But power." Cai Rong's eyes squinted. His hand was bleeding from the previous exchange. How could this be? He is just a 2nd layer chi condensation cultivator while I am an 8th layer bone tempering cultivator. That's a whole stage difference. Furthermore, followed Zhuo Fan, "You really think that was 2/10? That wasn't even a 10th. Cai Rong began to recall what transpired. Despite the abruptness of it all, he indeed wanted to release 2/10, but when he released the palm, his blood fell in disorder and the result was obvious to all. Also, take a look at your son." Zhuo Fan pointed at Cai Xiaoting. Cai Rong saw his son spat a mouthful of blood. "Dad, what's happening?" Cai Xiaoting panicked. He wasn't wounded yet he puked blood. "Zhuo Fan, what the hell did you do?" Cai Rong roared. Zhuo Fan replied with a sneer, "I only wanted to tell clan head Cai I can take your son's life anytime. Please take it into consideration." As Cai Rong was hesitating, Zhuo Fan pointed again, eliciting another mouth of blood form. Cai Xiaoting, "Alright, I believe you." Cai Rong wiped his brow of sweat as he spoke in a shaky voice. He didn't know what trick he pulled on his son, but Zhuo Fan was prepared for his intervention. He was now regretting. If he knew the Luo clan had such a shrewd and decisive steward, he wouldn't have taken things this far. "Then, I will bid you farewell here. Clan head Cai." Zhuo Fan sneered as he cupped his hands, then pulled Luo Yunchang and walked away. Zhuo Fan laughed all the while. Today you love to bully me, tomorrow you'll be beneath me. Uncle Cai, are you letting him go? Sun Yufei said with resentment, sighing helplessly. Cai Rong muttered as he watched Zhuo Fan leave. Instead of offering shelter, I invited an enemy. Shaking his head, he helped Cai Xiaoting walk inside. After a few steps, his eyes flashed as he turned to Sun Yufei. Yufei, we need to end Zhuo Fan as soon as possible. He will endanger your Sun clan. Humph. You don't dare to attack him because of your son. My Sun clan isn't afraid. I will let him have a taste of what it means to offend the 7 noble houses. Sun Yufei spoke with hatred. Chapter 17, Veiled Dragon Pavilion. Chapter 17, Veiled Dragon Pavilion. As the three left Cai Manor, Captain Pang and Luo Yunchang were trembling and even looked back now and then for fear of Cai Rong having changed his mind. Only Zhuo Fan was calm, yet a bit of rage still existed in his heart. Young miss, is there anywhere else we can go? Zhuo Fan asked in a cold tone. Her eyes turned misty as she shook her head. Captain Pang also signed in sorrow, taking a deep breath. Zhuo Fan gnashed his teeth and promised himself to run the Cai clan into the ground one day. He was just a step away from providing a safe haven for the Luo siblings. Yet Cai clan's father and son ruined it all. If the day came that the Cai clan was ruined because they offended Zhuo Fan, Cai Rong would be twisting inside with regret, but that was the future. Now, Zhuo Fan was pissed. His hopes were dashed and he had to spend more time to look after the siblings. Zhuo Fan mumbled for a while, then said, "Young miss, do you know what are the 7 noble houses?" "What? Where did you hear that from?" Luo Yunchang was in a panic as she watched Zhuo Fan. It was as if he knew a heavenly secret. But recalling the fantastic events that happened the past days, she relaxed. Captain Pang also looked oddly at Luo Yunchang. This was the first time he heard of them. Pursing her lips for a long time, Luo Yunchang finally spoke in a solemn tone. "Since we lived in Cloud Manor and had no dealings with them, not knowing them is normal. But we are now wandering outside. If you ever meet someone from the 7 noble houses, you must avoid him, even if it's a dog." Captain Pang was shocked. This was his first time seeing Luo Yunchang speaking on such a heavy tone, as if she was talking about horrifying people. Yet, a proud girl like her, even if from a fallen clan, did not speak near as highly about the Cai clan. The warning seemed to go right past Zhuo Fan as he retained his calm. Be it Luo clan or Cai clan, regardless of how strong they are only mortal clans. But in Tianyu Empire, there are 7 officials who earned the imperial family's approval and can stand next to the emperor. Their power and territory are above all mortal clans. Fighting them is like going against the empire. What? This world has clans that can stand next to the imperial family? Captain Pang's face contorted in fear. Luo Yunchang nodded with extreme seriousness. Every clan knows these 7 families must not be touched. I am telling you this so that you all must remember to be careful. Is the Sun clan one of them? Interrupted Zhuo Fan, stunned for a second. Luo Yunchang shook her head. Why do you ask? Yeah, brother Zhuo, if she was of the 7 houses, then young miss would have stopped you from smacking her. Captain Pang snickered. Since Luo Yunchang didn't stop him, then she agreed in silence as if she was found out. Luo Yunchang reddened and glared at him. In fact, seeing Sun Yufei slapped was the most refreshing event for Luo Yunchang. Since Captain Pang could tell how glad the girl was, how could Zhuo Fan not? But Zhuo Fan's vision was much further. Even if they had a falling out with the Sun clan, he had to understand the other's background. Then is the Sun clan part of the 7 houses? What made you come to that conclusion? Luo Yunchang was feeling nervous for some reason. Her only hope right now was that Zhuo Fan was joking around to scare her, but his next words were spoken with a straight face. That girl raved how she'll let us see the might of the 7 noble houses. How can this be? Did we offend 7 noble houses people? Luo Yunchang paled and her mind blanked, watching Zhuo Fan with empty eyes. Captain Pang was even worse. His heart froze up at this moment. The world seemed to have vanished, making way for silence. Zhuo Fan, quick, we need to apologize to young Miss Sunday. Luo Yunchang pulled him to Cai Manor, but Zhuo Fan was stuck like a rock. If we go, we'll die. Zhuo Fan said coldly. Luo Yunchang froze and her eyes glazed with helplessness. Zhuo Fan's words were ear-piercing, but they all spoke of the harsh truth. If offending the 7 noble houses was so easily settled, no one would have regarded them with such fear. Brother Zhuo, what do we do? They were all surprised to find Luo Yunhai speaking as he gazed at Zhuo Fan with unshakable faith. Not even Zhuo Fan foresaw it. A kid that everyone overlooked was now watching him with such big and innocent eyes. Wasn't I a stinking slave? Squinted Zhuo Fan. Big bro Zhuo, we, brother and sister, are grateful for this new chance at life. You're our greatest benefactor, my dear brother. My dear brother-in-law, please save us once again. Yunhai, don't talk nonsense. Luo Yunhai glared with a red face, yet her eyes couldn't help sneaking a glance at Zhuo Fan. They were alive thanks to him. Despite being inferior in his eyes, Zhuo Fan's abilities made others have a whole new level of respect for him. This was the reason why she appointed him as the clan's steward for the rebuilding of the clan. Men like him were needed. Zhuo Fan saw Luo Yunhai's imploring eyes and laughed inside. This kid is a clan's son after all, haughty but also clever to see another's talent, how adorable. Moreover, helping the Luo clan was a given for him. Does Windgaze City have men from the 7 houses? Yes, the Veiled Dragon Pavilion, the #1 treasure appraising clan among the 7 houses. Its wealth knows no bounds. Then let's return to the tavern and go to Veiled Dragon Pavilion tomorrow. Zhuo Fan ruffled Luo Yunhai's head. What for? Luo Yunchang rushed to ask allies. Zhuo Fan's curt reply came. The others were stunned. Why would one of the 7 noble houses, the Veiled Dragon Pavilion, ally with a run-down clan? That was more of the wish of a hopeless loser. Chapter 18, Long Kue. Chapter 18, Long Kue. A tens of meters tall ancient building stood in the eastern part of Windgaze City. Its size overwhelmed any from approaching to the point that not a single person dared get within 100 meters of it. 2 guards in golden garb stood at the gates. Their aura gave off the impression of veterans, of imperial bodyguards. Despite standing still, their eyes roamed everywhere, staring daggers at any who dared match their gaze. But in this place, for people suddenly appeared. Peak of chi condensation. Zhuo Fan muttered as he walked in front of the siblings and Captain Pang. While he had no problem facing such imposing guards, the 3 stiffened, to the point they almost forgot to walk. Stop. The guards barred Zhuo Fan's path. Veiled Dragon Pavilion is not a place for you to wonder about. I ask that you send word of Cloud Manor Luo clan's young miss, Luo Yunchang. I have arrived to have something appraised. Zhuo Fan's eyes didn't even look at them. The 2 exchanged a look of surprise. Windgaze City didn't lack people who came here to see the appraiser, but all were fearful and fawned them when talking. This was a first though, meeting such a smug kid. We've never heard of you. Our appraiser can't meet with nobodies, spoke a guard harshly. Luo Yunchang lowered her head. One of the 7 noble houses, Veiled Dragon Pavilion, would never pay attention to an ant-like clan. They weren't even worthy to speak with them, not to mention become allies. Zhuo Fan. Luo Yunchang pulled Zhuo Fan, but before she could finish, he shook her off. That is the appraiser's concern to see us. Try and act as the servants you are. What did you say? The guards were outraged, releasing their full aura. The Luo clan members felt their breathing become heavier as they retreated back. Only Zhuo Fan stood in his place and roared, is this how the 7 noble houses treats its guests? Humph, truly renowned. Stop. A girl in white came out to meet them. The guards bowed. Young miss, these people are looking for trouble. I heard what you said, and it is you who are in the wrong. All who come are guests. Make sure to show respect. The girl berated them in a cold tone, then smiled at Zhuo Fan. Mister, we meet again. It's you. Zhuo Fan and Captain Pang were startled. She was the one that quarreled with the stall owner, but things were different now. Zhuo Fan sneered inside. I didn't expect for young miss to be from the Veiled Dragon Pavilion. Please forgive my lack of respect. The girl nodded with a smile. I am Long Kue, only a small appraiser here. I wonder why Mister has come to us. To be honest, I am Luo clan's steward, Zhuo Fan. Because a terrible misfortune plagues us, I accompanied my young miss to the Veiled Dragon Pavilion, the #1 appraising noble house in Tianyu Empire's #1 appraising noble house, to sell the clan's treasure. Hey! Eyes flashing, Long Kue smiled when she saw Luo Yunchang nodding, then turned back to Zhuo Fan. Then I will do my best to examine your treasure. Please, follow me. She showed them in, to the shock of the guards. Was that, young Miss friend? No way. How can young Miss have such a dirt poor friend? She must be doing it for the treasure. Once it fails to meet her expectations, they will be kicked out. Then, here. We will teach them a lesson they won't ever forget, especially that rude Zhuofan. But what if the item is to her licking? That's impossible. Just look at them. How can these wretched people have anything that is worth more than black jade? Ha ha ha. The other also jeered, rubbing his hand in eagerness to vent all his energy. On the other side, Long Kuei took them to a flourishing room and smiled once they were seated. I wonder what treasure did you bring? Please take it out. Zhuofan grinned. This girl thinks herself above others, but is quite shrewd as well. He was certain she knew exactly what went on at the entrance, but let the guards test them if they were worthy of her time. If they showed any sign of giving up, her current attitude would have been unyielding despite how cunning she was. She was far too naive when up against the devilish Zhuofan whoosh. Zhuofan placed a scroll with countless images before her, which immediately caught her full attention. Taking it in her hands, Long Kuei took careful and long looks at the contents. Luo Yunchang and Captain Pang were in a bit of a shock. This drawing was something Zhuofan made last night. When they saw it, they only had one thought. What is this thing? Yet from the looks of Long Kuei's expression, it must be worth a fortune. Mr. Zhuofan, how much do you want? Long Kuei placed the scroll back and watched Zhuofan with a hardened gaze. Young Miss Long is an appraiser and saw your skill in the market. Please be the first to state a price. Zhuofan chuckled, biting her lip. Long Kuei noticed from his eyes that this man was also knowledgeable. She couldn't swindle him. How does 20,000 spirit stones sound? What, 20,000? Luo Yunchang stood up in shock. If you'd take Cloud Manor's wealth when it was at its peak, you'd get 50,000. Yet Zhuofan messed around with a brush and came up with 20. Captain Pang was dumbstruck. Long Kuei couldn't restrain her disdain for the two. Humph, I am a madam while you are a pack of stray cats. But when she saw the silent yet smiling Zhuofan, she turned serious. The true expert is this steward. Chapter 19, Godai Longju. Chapter 19, Godai Longju. Looking for proofreaders for this novel. 20,000, ha ha ha. Zhuofan rubbed his chin, shaking his head as he reached for the scroll. Since young Miss Long isn't honest, there's no need to continue. Her body moved back and hugged the scroll, afraid Zhuofan might take it. Mr. Zhao, 20,000 isn't little for a first-grade array. And this is a drawing instead of a jade slip. This price of mine is fair. Ha ha ha, young Miss Long, I might not be too learned, but I know when you try to cheat me. Give me the scroll. Zhuofan reached out but was in no rush to take it as he stared down at her, tightening her grip on the drawing. Long Kuei bit her lip and shouted, take it as my loss, 30,000. Young Miss Long, still is not honest enough. Zhuofan shook his head in disappointment and leaned over to grab for the scroll. Long Kuei curled backward, wanting to dodge Zhuofan's evil clutches. This drawing was indeed a first-grade array, and this wasn't the first time she saw one. Her original price was quite fair and began with 20,000 because she knew she couldn't swindle the knowledgeable Zhuofan, but even so, with how many arrays were out there, she didn't know them all. The number one appraising noble house in the empire had many arrays in storage, yet this was a rare chance for her to encounter one that was unlike any she saw before. As such, even if she would lose out, she would do all she could to have this array. A pity that the relentless Zhuofan stood in her way, unwilling to back down even half a step. As such, she turned to the ignored young miss of the Luo clan. Young Miss Luo, this drawing is 30,000 at most. Only the Veiled Dragon Pavilion has the wealth to buy such a drawing in the entire empire. You won't gain a better price elsewhere. She hesitated and glanced at Zhuofan. Long Kuei knew she had an escape and pushed her advantage to entice her. Young Miss Luo, you and the Veiled Dragon Pavilion are making a great transaction and will become our honored guest. Our doors will forever be open to you. Honored guest. Luo Yunchang mumbled, isn't this gaining a supporter? Her heart was overtaken with joy and turned to Zhuofan. What if? Not a word. Zhuofan roared and glared at her. This foolish woman was swayed in seconds. How could the Veiled Dragon Pavilion stick their heads out for some bullshit guests? To get the best of their power, to have their protection, they could only attain it through a trade of equals. Young Miss Long, I am Luo clan's steward, in charge of all matters concerning it. Please return the drawing. Zhuo Fan's smile was replaced by a cold stare. Luo Yunchang looked in a daze, first at him then at Luo Yunchang, though his words rang true. Since when did a steward's power superseded his lord's? How was he the steward? By the look of things, the lady of Luo clan is unable to keep the steward in check. Sighing, Long Kuei was very reluctant in giving the scroll back, evident by her slow movement. Such a pity, Mr. Zhuo Fan. Your request is too high and I can't fulfill it. But I am willing to guarantee on our Veiled Dragon Pavilion's fame that this first-grade array won't go beyond 30,000. With the scroll in hand, Zhuo Fan rose from his seat and leaned closer to Long Kuei, leaving her flabbergasted before she could say anything. He said, "Sorry, it seems I thought too highly of the young miss. You truly don't understand. Does this place have any other appraiser?" What? I do not understand. Long Kuei's cheeks were tinted red as her heart swelled with anger. No item that passed her hands hadn't received a correct assessment. The fact she could point out the fake black jade, yet unable to explain why, was her talent. It was because of this that she rose to a top-rated appraiser. In short, she was an expert. Yet, here came Zhuo Fan mocking her talent, refuting her skill in appraising. It was worse than any physical attack, an insult to her dignity. Mr. Zhuo Fan, your eyes are not wrong, but it is best not to overreach. Long Kuei showed a smile that went beyond just anger. All of them could hear the gnashing of her teeth, yet Zhuo only smiled. Is there any other appraiser here? Long Kuei glared. Fine, just wait here. And she left. Luo Yunchang was worried about the anger Long Kuei showed. Did we offend the Veiled Dragon Pavilion? Zhuo Fan shook his head with an unusual smile. Moments later, Long Kuei appeared again with steady steps. But this time, an old man was at her side. God Eye Longju? Luo Yunchang shouted in shock and turned to Zhuo Fan. He is the supervisor of the Veiled Dragon Pavilion in Windgaze City, the head appraiser, God Eye Longju. Ah, it's Luo clan's young miss. Even from 100 steps, Longju's voice resounded clearly in their ears. I've met your father 20 years ago. He was full of metal then. I didn't expect for your clan to sell their treasure. Zhuo Fan's heart shivered as his brows knitted. This man's power was a cut above Cai Rong's, to the point not even Zhuo Fan could see through him. It wasn't that his eyesight were poor, or the fact the old man hid his power. The difference between them was just too deep. I see. So Veiled Dragon Pavilion has such an expert, thought Zhuo Fan soon. Longju was supported by Long Kuei and arrived before them. Luo Yunchang bowed. Grandpa Ju. The others were quick to follow, yet Zhuo Fan just stood there. Longju sized him up with his only hazy eye. Are you Luo clan steward? Yes. All right. Anyone's better than that old Sunday. Longju shot a meaningful glance at them, then sat down. I heard you doubt little Kuei's skill. Yes. Zhuo Fan didn't mince words, eliciting a snort from her and a roll of the eye. Ha ha ha. Little Kuei might be new in this line of business, but her eyes are true. She must be more or less right with her assessment. But since you doubt her, this blind old man will take a look. Please. Zhuo Fan offered the scroll. The Longju's smile vanished when he turned to its contents, staring intently at it. Uncle Ju, wasn't I right? Long Kuei grinned and shouted, first grade array, 30,000 spirit stones. Longju kept staring at the drawing and only after a while did he spoke with a solemn face. I never thought the Luo clan would hide such a thing. Kid, what do you think of 8 million spirit stones? What? They all went slack-jawed, Long Kuei in particular. Never had she dreamed of the day the supervisor of Veiled Dragon Pavilion, Longju, would utter such an astronomical number. Chapter 20 Ancient Array. Chapter 20 Ancient Array. Looking for proofreaders for this novel. Uncle Ju. Long Kuei watched Longju wide-eyed, who instead watched the calm Zhuo Fan with his only eye. Zhuo Fan gazed back with a grin, too low. They all cried out in response. 8 million was an inconceivable wealth for the Luo clan. Luo Yunchang never dreamed of having such riches. Yet in the eyes of Zhuo Fan, it wasn't enough. Luo Yunchang and Captain Pang looked lost at him. If not for being born and raised in the Cloud Manor, they'd be thinking he was a noble descendant. His gaze traveled so far, yet before others could recover from Zhuo Fan's attack, here came Longju's reply. I understand, but this is the most this old man can give. Then I'll sell it as a favor for Grandpa Ju at this price. Luo Yunchang chuckled embarrassingly as she wiped her brow. She never imagined a random drawing from Zhuofan would garner such an insane price that took all of God Eye Longju's wealth to pay for it, and by the looks of it, Longju seemed to have set his sights on it. As such, it was better to earn his favor and be on good terms with Veiled Dragon Pavilion. Longju showed a gratified smile, as expected, being extra careful as he rolled the drawing, but then, Zhuofan slapped the table. Since you can't go higher, the deal is off. Zhuofan. Luo Yunchang gave him a look, but he ignored her as he reached for the scroll, squinting his eyes. Longju unleashed his awe-inspiring power. Kid, this old man wants it. Under such tremendous pressure, everyone recoiled, while Luo Yunchang and Captain Pang were overwhelmed from shock. Longju was far above Cai Rong. Offending him would be tantamount to instant death, yet Zhuo held his own under the man's power and even sneered, Grandpa Ju, you're staining Veiled Dragon Pavilion's reputation. Kid, are you not afraid? Longju kicked his power up a notch. Humph, aren't you? Blanking out for a second, Longju took back his power and laughed. Ha ha ha, good kid. With you in charge of the Luo clan, they have nothing to worry about. The others were baffled. The two were a step away from jumping at each other's throat, and in the next instant all went up in smoke. Yet no one knew the two moved the battle from brawn to mind. Longju released his power to soften Zhuofan into selling him the drawing. Instead, Zhuofan pushed through the pressure and asked the old man about his honor. Veiled Dragon Pavilion was the #1 appraising house among the 7 nobles. If this coercion leaked, then the damage would be unimaginable. Zhuofan bet on his fate and the clan's honors place in Longju's heart and won. With a deep look directed at Zhuofan, Longju took the direct approach. Kid, I know you didn't come just to sell this drawing. What are your terms? Grinning, Zhuofan pushed the drawing before Longju. 10 million is a fair offer. Let's start by having you pay us 1 million and the rest slowly. That's. Longju eyed the scroll, then nodded after a while. All right. Until the debt is paid, the Veiled Dragon Pavilion shall owe Luo clan. Longju took the scroll and left. Yet once he was gone, his voice lingered. Little Kuei, give them 1 million spirit stones and walk them out. Yes. Long Kuei was overwhelmed with different thoughts as she had never seen Longju with such a sour expression. Turning back to Zhuofan, it was the first time she saw him sporting such a content smile. Next, she handed 1 million spirit stones and saw them out at the gate. The 2 guards were eager for them to show up and teach them a thing or two, but Long Kuei's respectful attitude threw a wrench in their plans. And when they heard the deal they made included 1 million spirit stones, they were stunned. Never had they imagined a remote place like this could come with such an important deal. It became one of the top 3 deals in Veiled Dragon Pavilion's history. Damn, thank God we didn't do anything or disaster might have struck. A guard watched the 4 leave and wiped the sweat off his brow. The other just bobbed his head. Veiled Dragon Pavilion treated a rich clan with respect. If any of their men dared to offend the clan, the noble house would exact punishment. In the case of a clan with 1 million spirit stones, the guards' complete lack of courtesy would even end with their deaths. Thinking about it, they began to sweat buckets. On the other hand, Long Kuei returned to Longju, who was now looking at every detail of the first-grade array. Uncle Ju, isn't it just a first-grade array? How is this worth 10 million? I never even seen an item worth that much. Long Kuei asked the moment she went through the door, sighing. Longju gestured to her next to him. Little Kuei, look closer, this might be the only one of its kind in the empire. This is. Long Kuei's eyes flashed with shock. An ancient array. Longju showed how moved he was with every word. The ancient arrays are a lost art, yet this has essentially proven their existence. It is priceless, and even 10 million is too low. What? It's that valuable? Nodding, Longju revealed a childish smile, as if he got his most cherished toy. But something occurred to him that soured his mood. Little Kuei, tell Ajie to find 5 experts and watch over the Luo clan. They offended the Sun clan today. Why should we help them? Longju snorted. Haven't you been listening? We owe them. Long Kuei began to recall. So this is what Zhuofan and Longju were haggling over. Yet, the veteran Uncle Ju was defeated in negotiations by a pup. Of course he was in a bad mood. Long Kuei couldn't help but let out a giggle. You're tuning in to the Celestial War YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.